Customers are currently migrating their SAP ECC 3 systems to S4 systems or implementing SAP S4 systems. And as part of this process, it's quite often necessary to migrate data from a legacy system to the new SAP S4 HANA system.
Okay, we've come across that once or twice before. And I can imagine that the planning and also the challenges for customers are similar to moving from one apartment to another.
Exactly. This topic is often very hard to grasp at first, especially for business users or business department employees. So, as a team, we thought about how we could make this topic more tangible. And that's when we came across the analogy or metaphor of moving. Why? There are actually 3 points. We really like to use these, and especially at the beginning of projects, they help a lot to get a better understanding of the topic. Point one is the moving plan. We have the issue that a move needs to be very well planned. That might not always be the case in reality, so in practice, if we think about typical moves like moving out of a student apartment into your first own place, then the plan might still be, let's say, kept pretty simple. But we do have a plan, and that's what's crucial for data migration. There are both technical restrictions that have to be followed, that is, in the sequencing, in the process of data migration, but also business-related issues that need to be taken into account. And there's a very simple point. Master data has to be migrated first before you can migrate the transactional data. Those are the kinds of things that really matter. And we take all of that into account in our relocation plans, in our migration plans for the data migration.
Okay, thank you very much. When I think about it, we're moving data from one system to another. I've heard that business users are often affected, so to speak, the ones who produce the data and need it for their daily business. What challenges do you and your team actually encounter in practice?
I think in the initial contact, it's definitely the fact that as an external team, you come into the client's project and you don't know the data in as much depth as the client does. And that's exactly the point where we come back to the end users, to the business department employees who have been responsible for this data for years, either as part of the MDM team or in areas like purchasing or sales. And that's why the clients themselves know their database best. And that's exactly the point where, as external experts, we've set up a series of workshops that help us to develop exactly this depth, conceptually together with the clients, so that in the end, we can make the data quality available again on the S4 system. But it's not just the plan that we talked about at the beginning. I mentioned that there are 3 essential points in the context of migration. There are also the movers. So you also can't do it without active helpers who support the move. If we think about a typical move, these are the people who might be packing things up in the old apartment. They're the guys with the big arms who carry things up and down the stairs. Maybe there's the driver. And in the same way, we've put together a diverse team that combines different skills, which allows for perfect staffing in migration projects when it comes to team composition. So we have developers on board who can analyze errors deep within the SAP standard, debug, and handle issues that come up during data migration. But on the other hand, we also have colleagues who are very strong conceptually in moderating workshops, so they can initially develop what I would call the migration design. And since the requirements for selecting the data, meaning which data do I want to take with me from my legacy system, or for data cleansing, they can work together with the customer to gather the requirements in that regard. And then we can implement it cleanly during the migration. And the third point, since I just mentioned it now, that's a classic. What's the most important thing when moving? What do you think?
The date.
The date, exactly. That's something you can't change. But that's no different in a project either. So that's not what I was getting at, but rather the topic of clearing things out. That's a really interesting point. Everything I clear out before moving from my apartment, let's stick with the student apartment, to my first own place, anything I throw away, give away on eBay classifieds, sell, whatever it is, that's all stuff I don't have to take with me. And we keep running into the same issue in S4 projects. We have the topic of data archiving. We can archive old data beforehand so we don't have to migrate it. We can clean up data whose master data quality isn't quite as good as we'd like it to be. We can improve the data quality on the old system before we need it on the new S4HANA system, and in doing so, create the opportunity to avoid unnecessary errors during the overall data migration and ensure everything runs smoothly with our master data, and then later to migrate the transactional data to the new SAP system.
We hope the video helped you. In case you got any additional questions or comments, please leave a message below. See you next time, your ADVIST Academy.